Abhi, what are the meanings of living institution? First one, we discussed that the deity in the Garbhagriha is alive in the sense that all the puja archana is going on, all the rituals are taking place, everything is happening, so the deity is alive, and through that the temple is called as a living system, through that as living. But there are more meanings of living, because the temple is also an ecosystem. It interacts with the communities and individuals living around it. It has a management and administration. It is an organization and institution in itself. It employs a lot of people. There are many volunteers in it. It engages with the communities that live around it. It engages with the individuals that live around it. Now, how does that happen? That is what we'll study. So, we'll discuss some different aspects with some examples of how and where they take place. After that, once again, we'll open up for questions and more sort of a discussion. I keep my lecture short, except the first one, because I had to lay out the entire ground. So it expanded into full 1.5 hours. But otherwise, I try to keep them short, around half an hour, so that we have more time for discussion, more time for question and answers. So the terms that we use, Devalaya. Devalaya simply is abode of the god, home of the god, of the deity. Second was Vigraha. We talked about sculpture, iconography, Pratima Lakshan. And the third is Mandir. Now, Mandir traditionally had been the term for, it meant a gathering place. Gathering place which is, for sacred divine purposes, but it was a gathering place in north. You should not be bothered about now. Abhi aisa nahi ki hum mandir कहना छोड़ देंगे. Not at all. It's a very useful, very beautiful term. We call temple as mandir. That's okay. We should keep doing so. But if you ask the scholars, if you go down towards the south, they will have different terms which will tally with the Sanskrit Shastras that are there. So that mandir is the gathering part, but here I've used it as the term in which it encompasses the greater institution, not just the building, not just the sculpture, architecture, not just the rituals, but also the way as an institution, how does the Hindu temple interact with the communities and individuals that live around it. This we don't need to go too much, but before we go on that journey, we should remember that the first and the foremost purpose of a temple is to have darshana. So when we talk about the economics part, the sociological part, we should not forget that the primary focus of the temple, primary purpose of its existence is for the devotee to have darshan of Bhagwan. So that is the primary purpose. After that, everything else takes place. Now this is supposed to be, it's not the real picture of the Tirupati Balaji, because they never let you click the real picture. And this is the entire point, is to have darshan of Bhagwan in a swarup in which you have never seen before. So the whole point is to make you travel until that place, have darshan of Bhagwan right there. So that is why a lot of them do not want you to click the Vigraha of the deity, because that's not how darshan is supposed to happen. Abhi a lot of temples, for example, Somnath Sanstana does a live stream of Abhishek and all. So different traditions, different sampradayas. But when, when they stop also, the reason, the logic is this. So another word in Hindi, in Sanskrit, which you have heard is mat, about temple. And if you go to Karnataka and many other places, they don't talk of temple or Devalaya also they don't talk. They either use the word mat or Sanstana. So, Kaneri Sanstana. So the very word that they use is institution. So they see it already as not just a building or not just a place where you go to have darshan, but already a social, political, economic institution which has many, many dimensions. So mat is where sadhus and rishis and students and teachers gather. This is a shot of the wonderful Nataraj temple in Tamil Nadu. And if you enter, it is also very scenic. I think recently Narendra Modi ji went there and met the Dikshitar. So there is a community Dikshitar, around 400 people or so, not many, 400, 500 if I am correct about the number. So they are specific Brahmanas only in that temple, which a long time ago came from north, but settled down there in the south in Tamil Nadu, only in that temple, and have become experts in all the rituals that take place, particularly in that temple. So when once again we talk about we should have these exams like centralized, like they are for example IIT and all the nuances, the complexity of our temple ecosystem cannot be managed by centralized exam. I'm not against training people and communities into become archakas. So don't get me wrong, because as things stand, so many temples do not have archakas, hereditary archakas, they have run out of them. And government targets this, just like the British government, if you do not have a son, if a king does not have a son, they take over the, the kingdom. Similarly, they take over temples which no longer have a hereditary archak there. They take over other temples also, not all over India, most in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, somewhere in Telangana, somewhere in Andhra, Telangana, Karnataka, not so much in the north. But they do this. So we need to develop internal mechanisms of training archakas, but not through centralized exams. Because it's not just about the individual. The charya that goes with an archaka is about the entire family, about the extended life that he has. So the entire kutumba as such has to be brought up into that lifestyle, that charya, but it can be done. It has been done before. It can be done. It should be done. But it cannot be done with a centralized exam, as they say. Ki exam rakh do. It's an aptitude. An aptitude can have an exam. An exam to exam mein aaj hamare yahan bhi cheating hoti hai. Everywhere it does. So the same thing which happens there. Imagine the disaster that we are staring at. So here, and this temple is an example. Dikshitars exist only here. They have a very different way of having shikhas. Tamil Nadu Brahmins, Tam Brahmins have a different way of wearing shikhas, but Dikshitars have an even more peculiar way of wearing shikhas. It's very, you can make them out far from distance. And their rituals, their customs have evolved over time only pertaining to this temple. And you might imagine, how many of you have been to this temple? Chidambaram, Nataraj, only 2. It's so huge that yes, you can spend centuries, a community can spend centuries exploring and adapting to the temple. It's very, very big. So a lot of this Vedic and other teachings and learnings keep happening in this temple. Any nook and corner you go, you will see a band of these scholars sitting, standing, chanting, learning, and the learning is taking place. So it is where sadhus and rishis gather. So it's not just a place where you find deity, there you find rishis also, sadhus also. Socio-economic center, we discussed a little about it, but let us go more. This was what I was discussing about Tiruchirappalli, Sri Ranganath Swami. This is the outermost Gopuram, the largest. It's so huge, isme se bus nikal sakti hai. The opening that is there, a bus can pass through, they go inside. So when the first time I went, it was so shocking. First of all, it felt very non-sacred. Arey bus andar aa gayi, temple ke andar aa gayi. And people were wearing footwears and all. But actually that stops after 1-2 courtyards. But the thing is, because the temple is so huge, so you cannot stop vehicles from coming in. Even in earlier times, rathas and other vehicles must have come in their own way. So this is the highest, the outermost Gopuram is the highest. And it is very famous across, architecture books and all. It is so huge, as I said, the entire city, half of the island is within it. Like I said, banks, ATMs, all kinds of shops are there. So the thing is, this will make the temple profane. It doesn't exist. That concept doesn't exist. Once again, this does not mean that you start obscenity in it. Yeah, pre-wedding shoot, yeah, aisa hum kare aur vigraha ke samne. That is not what somebody is recommending. But entire sansar is contained somewhere within it. It is a socio-economic center. There are many, many forms of it. For example, just right in front of the Chidambaram Nataraj temple that we just discussed, Kanak Sabhapati ji, if any one of you know of him, in IIT Bombay, his textbook has been included in economics. It is called Indian Models of Economics, Business and Management. So when we went first with this title, with this book, they denied, "Arey, Indian models hote hi nahi hai." What are the Indian models? All the models are not Indian. But actually what he had done, he had gone to many clusters of India, Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan, Gujarat, Bengal, many other places, went there, studied. If you have heard of R. Vaidyanathan and S. Gurumurthy, they have done studies of the India Anink is a very famous book by R. Vaidyanathan. that there is this formal economy, but there is a lot of informal economy that exists along with the formal economy. How does that operate? What are the ways? It doesn't operate exactly as the formal economy operates. So what are those ways in which it operates? So in front of, and he takes the example of Chidambaram Nataraj temple. So how, see, economics, study of economic model, and here I am trying to study a temple model and how these two come together. So when I was in front, I saw a series of these garland sellers, women, on footpath and some shops also selling all of these garlands. Along with that, there were many other actually merchandise that was being sold. Not just garlands, prasadam, clothes for different vigrahas of Bhagwan, so many things. So many things are done in the rituals, used in the rituals that are done in the temples, they were being sold. Now Kanak Sabhapatiji tells a beautiful story. So those women, they come daily there and they ask for a loan. There are chit fund wala sort of table lagakar, these people sit who loan money on a daily basis. So they loan 100 rupees, they ask 100 rupees from them, 100 rupees they take, buy their merchandise. By the evening, they make around 300-400 rupees with the merchandise which they bought with that 100 rupees, pay back 200 to that seller. That's very high rate. He calculated 34,000 some rates, because in 8 hours or so it doubles up the money, 200 or 150 or whatever is the rate. Deposit, and there also there is another bankers, unofficial bankers who come, who deposit 100 rupees जो चिट फंड है वो उनका 100 रुपये जमा करते हैं, 100 रुपये रोज का खर्चा वो ले जाते हैं घर पे और 50 उसको वो ब्याज देते हैं. So this is how a garland seller, and this he quantified it. So this is not these are not anecdotal knowledge. This is not anecdotal knowledge. He quantified it. He went there, studied them, and told what quanta of economy actually gathers around a temple. This is simply about garland walas. Then there are so many other things. In Ram temple now they are assessing how many crores, 4,000 crores or something crores, or some they are going to, in tax itself it is going to pay to the UP government and all. So one more reason, to keep building temples and keep reviving them. So hospital bana ke kabhi itna baki sara institutions nahi aayega, but if we make a temple, a hospital will also come up, as you will see. A college will also come up, a Vridhashram will also come up. So once again that Shaunak question, because ours is a Shaunak civilization, so we are shortcut. बहुत सारा है, भूल गए, confuse हो गए, हमें shortcut बता दो. Shaunak क्या पूछता है? In Mundak Upanishad, I guess. Shaunak asks, and it's a very, if I'm not wrong in attributing to Upanishad or the scholar, but I guess I'm right in this case. He asks, what is that by knowing which everything else becomes known? So the question of questions, meta question that ever was asked. What is that? Arey, kitna jane? Biology, history, philosophy, unka, inka, parishan. And something with which every student will also relate to. Kitna padna hai, kitne paper hai, kitne subjects hai. Tell me by knowing which everything else becomes known. That is a question which our civilization has again and again asked. Our civilization is about what is the seed cause of the matter. So उस जिसको जानने से सब कुछ जानने को मिलेगा. In my book, where I end it, is there in Swayambhu, tell me by saving which everything else worth saving becomes saved, and tell me by destroying which everything else which is evil gets destroyed. So this question has been asked again and again in our civilization. यहाँ पे भी, tell me that one institution by creating which all other institutions are created on their own. जैसे in economics there was I do not come from those communities or families which are good at managing finance, but one of my friends, you would have known Navji also, Ram Sharma of Indus University. So he is a Brahmin, but he comes from a very well established business family. So his father and all, very good business family. So there, in their house, there was a idiom, local idiom, which was there in the market, कि घर से दुकान नहीं बनती, दुकान से घर बनता है. So if you have money and if it's restricted, invest it in a shop which will create the house for you. The house is not going to create the shop for you, because house is, it won't generate more finance. So simply here, what is that institution by creating which all other institutions get created. So that institution is the temple, and we'll see how. तो मैं बहुत इकोनॉमिक्स में नहीं जाऊंगा. Again, I am not संदीप सिंह है एक maybe we can invite him someday of Mumbai, who has written on extensively on temple economics only. Kanak Sabhapati ji in other ways talks a lot about this. He is also a very good name, and because his in IIT Mumbai, his book is already operational. He is also he gives wonderful insights into this. I won't go too deep into it. I just showed you that around the temple all sorts of economic activities take place. I have been to so many towns which will cease existing if the temple disappears. In some cases, it's just one temple. Chidambaram exists for Nataraj temple. Tiruvannamalai exists for that Arunachaleshwar temple. Similarly, in Kumaon, Uttarakhand, Bagpat, sorry, not Bagpat, there is a beautiful, I just lost the name. There is another temple जहाँ क्रियाकर्म होते हैं, so it's a very famous, we recently took our cohort to it. That entire town exists if you remove that temple and all the activities associated with it. Because people come to that temple to do Antim Sanskara and a lot of rituals associated with it. So all the shops and all the institutions that come up around cater to that. You remove the temple, that need is removed, and the entire town disappears. The economic reason for, because there needs to be an economic reason for a town to be there. Otherwise, why? Why should 2 lakh people gather in a place and live together if there is no economic activity? So this is the economic activity. It's very central to a temple, always used to be there. In north, after all the invasions, what has happened is that that you don't see, you see it in fragments. But as you keep going down south, and in the new wonderful temples that are coming up, you see that. For example, in Pune, if you go to Dagdu Set, you see, it's a very small thing. The temple itself is very small, but so much that has come up around it. If you go to Siddhivinayak temple, if you go to Sri Ram temple that is there, if you go to a lot of Sai Baba temples that are there, the entire place is abuzz with that economic activity that exists because the temple exists. And that is all kinds of where activities take place. A center of great learning. This is the scene directly from Sringeri, which I took like 10 years ago. So Sringeri is a place. How many of you have been to Sringeri? She has been everywhere. 2-3 people. Yatra का क्या meaning होता है, that we'll also dwell on. If I forget, ask that in question. So because this urge to go out of your home and the urge to remain at home, both are fundamental. How did we balance it is also a core part of the temple. We'll discuss on it. So Sringeri is a wonderful place. They have bought the entire forest land for the temple so that no other activity comes up, no other modern contraption or institution comes up. So when you enter the temple, the premises, they make you remove your footwear. It's almost always drizzling. So you have this umbrella with you and you are bare feet. And as you enter the temple, there are small temples, small institutions, and the river runs through the temple premises. So for a certain portion, for a few kilometers, it's private. And the river is Tunga, not Tungabhadra. Before it meets Bhadra at Bhadravati, the river Tunga flows through the temple. Now on this side, there are more concrete buildings like temples. On other side, there is just forest, sacred groves. Sacred groves also are very integral to a temple, which we will discuss later. On the other side, there are sacred groves. And you see, wherever you look, you feel like you are in a rainforest. It is a rainforest, but it has been preserved. If you go 20 kilometers away, everything has been destroyed by human activity. But here, wherever you look, it's raining, it's rainforest plunging down into the river. You will see deer running by, there are elephants, there are all sorts of animals, and it feels like you are 2000 years ago. And under these trees, under many of these canopies, you will find students like this in very traditional attire studying all of this. So it's a center of learning. We are used to, in the arena of news, we are used to focus only on the controversies that arise from every place. And if an institution is too big, there will inevitably, we also don't need to defend it, there will be some things which are off. some things which are bad, some statements that people make, even in those institutions which we do not like. But the 95 to 97% of the activities that are run at that place are for this, and they give you this. When you go there, just the sheer presence, you go there, stay there for 2 hours, 3 hours, it changes you. It makes you feel that things like this should be preserved, institutions like this should be preserved. Nobody tells you to do anything. Nobody forces you to do anything. Just by remaining there like this, you develop this feeling. So this is one shot. It is a center of learning. A center of arts, crafts, fine arts, of course, music, dance, singing. How? So another temple in Chennai. As soon as you, Chennai, there is a very famous temple. Once again, do not tell me you have been there also, because I will find out then temples that you have not been to. And you do not get me into a race. So there is this Malapur Shiv temple you must have been to. It's a very famous temple. How many of you? 3. So in Chennai, there is the core cultural part of Chennai, Malapur. Malapur, there is a temple. So when I first went there, I saw as I entered that there a classical performance was happening, and in which the dancers were striking poses which are defined in the Natya Shastra. So here, it's a beautiful way to understand the fluidity of Hindu disciplines. Just like I said earlier, a text on dance and drama describing poses of hands and feet. And those same poses, 2000 years later, in 2016 or 15, somebody, or 2025, they keep doing it every month, striking that pose, a dancer in a living dance is striking that pose in a temple right there. And nearby there is Chidambaram Nataraj temple, where on the gate all the 108 mudras that are described in Natya Shastra that are also carved on the gate. So in painting, in sculpture, in live performance, and in the Shastras. So 4 very widely different disciplines and mediums, and the same thing actually translates through. So this is also the fluidity of discipline. Now, you will maintain the how did they make it this fluid. First of all, the nature of disciplines is that they are connected. Even in knowledge systems and epistemologies like the Western, where they make it a point to isolate. Beyond a point, they find the need to de-isolate. Like in one of the lectures that I've taken at IIT Kanpur, the unity of knowledge, for example, they went into this beautiful reductionism at first, which was very, very functional, they could utilize it very much. There were results which were very beautiful. And then specialization, beyond reduction, specialization. And they have created a world which makes sense, which works, and there are so many disciplines which they have developed, which are so beautiful that you can spend lifetimes studying them. For example, evolutionary biology, I do not tire reading about. It's so beautiful. It's manifestation, prakriti, shakti in its action. When you study biology in that, zoology, biology in that, geology, zoology and biology in that sense, you study shakti and prakriti in action. But what has happened is that they have also experienced the lack of connection between one discipline and another. And so, again and again, they keep talking about a unifying theory and one science which, incorporates all sciences. Edward Wilson, one of the greatest biologists of last century, he coined a term, wrote a book also, consilience. Consilience means where not just sciences but also humanities, all that come together under one umbrella, one theory, one discipline to understand it all. So those of who are fond of the Lord of the Rings reference, one discipline to rule it all. So that is what they have been trying to create, but for them it's very hard because their way is different. They break down things into smaller parts and then they try to study it. But there you hit walls where integration is more important, and then they try to do it. They achieve it also at certain places, but a grand unification is not possible. But here, the very way it was designed was different. And how did they do it? So there is an element of naturally existing, but Sanskriti ko kehte hain prakriti ka sanskaran karna. So what exists already, you consecrate it, you maintain it. So this is what we have done in our civilization. जैसे दर्शन का जो वर्ड है, how did we create the fluidity of the disciplines? By creating a sacred vocabulary in a language, Sanskrit, which was fluid across many disciplines. For example, darshana. Darshan as a subject is what? Philosophy. But exactly philosophy is defined a little differently. It is love of knowledge and a little other meanings also, as they say it. But here it is as what you see directly, literally. Darshan means what a learned seer sees, what he witnesses. So what a saint in flights of meditation, on his journey of meditation, what he actually witnesses, what is darshana. It's not the flight of his imagination. He's not thinking about it. He's not a Marx or a Lenin. Otherwise they would also become darshanik. They are not, because there is no reality check there. They are not witnessing, they are imagining things, then they are writing them down. But here they are witnessing things. That's why it is called as darshan. In temple, how is darshan defined? And we just saw in the last two lectures that darshan is to witness your truest self, and that in a sense is the meaning of all Hindu disciplines. So there are many sacred words and vocabularies, phrases like this which keep floating in all of these disciplines. एक ही चीज़ है जो float करता रहेगा, एक concept है जो float करता रहेगा, which you will see everywhere. For example, in any one of you who is more connected to IKS, I keep recommending Mohan Raghavanji's latest work. Everyone should read it 4, 5, 6 times. So the same thing of the states of consciousness has been repeated many, many times in all of disciplines and all of mediums, and that is how they make it fluid. So that you never develop an arrogance that this discipline is more important than another discipline, or that they are disconnected with each other. So here you see arts and crafts. Of course there is great architecture. It's a, as we will see also, it's a live class in architecture, live class in sculpture, live class in painting, and many of these dances also take, performances also keep taking place. Singing of course accompanies, music, singing and dance accompany each other. So all of these things happen at the same time. Temple has always been a center where these people have been incorporated, where artists and aesthetes have been incorporated. So it's not just the utility. Once again we come to that debate of art for utility and art for art's sake. But no, here you don't see it just as art or as utility. You see both of them together. You do need that kind of elevating art in life. And very interestingly, the definition of Nagrik in our text has been very different. The way citizen is defined in English text is a very different concept. A citizen is simply one who dwells in the city, right? His citizenship is decided by his residence in a certain place, which is a city. Nagrik is not defined like this. Nagrik is defined as a person who lives in the city and who supports and nourishes arts and crafts. जो नगर में रह के कला का संवर्धन करता हो वह नागरिक है. A lot of texts define this. Why? And it beautifully comes up in a lot of shastras. Actually, once again, in modern times what has happened is that we have divorced our discipline too much. Arts also too much from sciences and other things, even in Hindu disciplines, because our way of study has been ki acha, Kumar Swami we discard as, not discard, clock him as art critic. So if I'm wanting to study philosophy or darshan, Kumar Swami is not useful for me. But this is not so. If you study drama, if you study something as recent as Mohan Rakesh, how many of you know about Mohan Rakesh? Ashar Ka Ek Din, one of the most ethereally beautiful pieces of dramas ever created in Hindi. And so that it dramatizes the life of Kalidasa. So Kalidasa is in his village. There is this Mallika, the girl, who falls in love with Kalidasa, who likes Kalidasa, and beautiful conversation takes place. Now he is being called by the city, by the king, because his talent has been recognized. And he says that he is mulling over whether to go to the city and to accept the next stage of life and leave this behind, or to stay here. The eternal dilemma of all of us. The beauty, charm, sedentary charm of a small city, of a small place. And then the call of, the metropolitan, cosmopolitan city, not just the grids I am talking about, But of course, a metropolitan city is where all the artists, all the scientists, all the thinkers gather. So it's a great gathering place of great minds. So this call, Kalidas is mulling over, deeply in this, and the conversation is going on. And एक बार कालिदास बीच में बोलते हैं कि मल्लिका, मुझे लगता है कि अगर मैं ग्रामीण क्षेत्र छोड़ देता हूँ तो ये सघन वन, ये सुंदर बादल, ये सुंदर नदियाँ जो मुझे आज प्रेरित करती हैं कविता के लिए, मेरी प्रेरणा ही कहीं मर ना जाए नगर में जाके. To which Mallika said, absolutely beautiful. I mean, when I stumbled upon Mohan Rakesh, I could never imagine that he is so great. And what answer Mallika gives, that कलाकार तो वो है जो अपनी दृष्टिपात जहां करे वहां उसे कला मिल जाए. तो कालिदास, तुम तो इतने महान हो कि तुम जहां भी जाओगे कला तो ढूंढ ही लोगे, तो कदाचित तुम्हें यहां नहीं रुकना चाहिए, तुम्हें वहां जाना चाहिए. Internally she is struggling because she loves him, and she knows if he leaves, she's losing her love of life. But at that cost and very elevating, conversation, she is exhorting Kalidasa to go away. But this is what they are discussing, and in that, the definition of Nagrik in practice comes up in this drama, this play. Harsha Dahejiya ji, one of the contemporary great artists. One more we can actually sometime invite. Absolutely wonderful work. He has written a book, Advait of Art, that art also dwells on the same things. In that he defines Nagrik very clearly well. So this is the definition of a Nagrik, the Advait of Art. Harsha Dahejiya. So a temple being at the center of the city, temples which are more at the center of the city, it's their duty, it has been their duty to actually give protection to all the arts, crafts and aesthetics so that they are nourished there, people's life become richer. Why? Because the more distance that you have from natural environment, the more cultural nourishing you need in higher levels of aesthetics. In village you don't need that much. So actually the most primitive, so-called primitive man did not have a theory of aesthetics because they didn't need it. There was no gap between their experience of life, beauty and daily life. But now there is. We live in very sanitized environment. So the more sanitized you make it, the more art you need, which we also discussed, I guess, in previous lectures. So while creating cities in India, they recognize the problem that that is going to come in all of these cities. And so with art, how much you can fulfill it. Of course, it's never 100%. To live near a waterfall, near a river is a different thing. To live in a high-rise where most of us live is a different thing. But as much as you can relieve that with art is what they try to do, and temple is the center for that. A social welfare institution. Now this is always true. A lot of people oppose also कि ऐसा ये पैसा यहाँ चला जाता है, वहाँ चला जाता है, but that's the purpose of the temple. People donate to temple because it's a central institution, and temple in turn donates to actually other those who are more needy in society, and that is how the cycle runs. Hospitals, it opens hospitals, hostels, mass, old age homes. This is a shot of once again Sringeri. And Sringeri mein jo annadanam hota hai, it's constant. Every day you can go and eat and have prasadam there. It's very interesting. Anyone you have had that prasadam there? Yeah. So it's a very different activity. You have to be very careful. So what happens is that they will make you sit there. अभी line में बैठे हैं. And मैं पहली बार गया, मैं बैठ गया और बैठ के पास में वो ट्रॉली वाले वो जो गाड़ी होती हैं जिसमें सब बर्तन हैं और लेकर वो खड़े थे. So I was wondering why they're not distributing. But then suddenly एक कोई अलार्म बजा. And then they started running with those trolleys ये बीच में. और मैं कुछ 7-8 दूर बैठा था. और जैसे वो जब when they were running, people started taking their plates on their own. और टाइम नहीं है इतना कि डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करने का. People started taking their own. और वो इतनी जल्दी हुआ कि मैं रह गया. कि हुआ क्या? What happened? तो मैंने कहा मिलेगी नहीं. But वो then they ran twice or thrice again so that everyone has a plate. और उसके बाद फिर जो खाना आता है कि वो सबसे पहले एक मीठा पदार्थ आता है और कोई कटोरी. तो ऑफ कोर्स यू हैव नो स्पेस और टाइम और इकोनॉमिक्स फॉर bowls and spoons. तो To more deracinate it, it's even harder. तो पहले एक पतली लेयर ऑफ खीर आई, अब खीर आई, अब पतली लेयर थाली में है, खीर है थाली में है, बहुत गर्म है, एंड यू हैव टू ईट इट. एंड द लोकल्स तो क्या करते हैं, वो हाथ लिया और ऐसे एक जाता है एक एक्शन, यहाँ उंगली के थ्रू खाना आता है, सीधे मुंह में जाता है. नोबडी मिसेस, एवरीवन डिड दैट. मैंने कहा मैंने ये किया तो कुछ और होगा, तो आई सिंपली हैड टू वेरी लाइक अ बूर टेक द प्लेट, वो सब एक साथ करके, एंड हैड टू ड्रिंक इट लाइक दिस. क्योंकि इफ यू आर नॉट क्विक इनफ, उसके ऊपर दाल आ जाएगी, उसके ऊपर चावल आ जाएगा. सो इट डिपेंड्स ऑन यू हाउ क्विकली यू आर डूइंग इट. बट द थिंग इज, lakhs of people eat there daily. This is just one interesting example. So many places, Anakshetram, it actually is free in the sense nobody asks money from you. You pay a service, you donate whatever you can. If you donate, if you are more capable, you donate more. If you're less capable, you donate less. If you're not capable, you don't donate anything, but then you feed others, help in service, and this is how it happens. So what they call now is soup kitchens or something like this. This was always the tradition of temple. Anakshetram to hamesha yahan chalta hai. When I went for the first time to Kumbh in 2016, Simhastha, Ujjain, so Ramnami jo sadhus hain, so when we entered their akhadas, one of their akhadas, asked Ramdas Lam, so he's not Indian but he became Hindu, became a sadhu. So and we started asking philosophical questions from him, but he said, "Bhojan kiya, pani piya, nahi, pehle bhojan karo." So he said, before bhojan, no talk about any of this. So they see our primary job is also, as we see it, first feed, and then talk about anything else. So हमारे यहाँ कहावत भी है कि भूखे पेट भजन नहीं होता. So Annakshetram is a very very important part of it, a temple. Now hospitals are also there. I lived for around 1 year in a temple in Kaniri, Kolhapur, called Siddhagiri Kshetra. It's a Lingayat Mutt. Now they have many institutions attached to it, which we can very easily see. So there are hospitals. There is an Ayurvedic hospital where all the Ayurvedic karma that happen. Then there is a modern allopathic hospital also, where surgeries and other things are also happen. How is it different from any other hospital? There you get treated for dirt cheap. The token is like 100 rupees. Or 500 rupees for a surgery, 100 rupees, for regular 3 days long treatment or so, just so that people are not, spending time there. So that is the token money. Now it must have increased. This was in 2014. But this is how they treat. So they give treatment to whoever is in need, but they have created, hospitals. Then of course hostels, yatri nivas hote hain, mess canteen hote hain, old age homes bhi hote hain. So all of these, what we now know as social welfare activities. Temple was the center of it. What difference did it make? Because right now, when you create the anathalaya, when you create hospitals, and when you subsidize them, you tell it's your right to get treated there, right? When you treat something as right, frustration is bound to happen, because there will be some misses, and you are not obliged. You say it's my birthright to get treated for free, no matter whatever is the disease, or whatever is my lifestyle. Because most of the problems today are connected to our lifestyles, less genetic, less infectional, but more related to our lifestyles. But you don't judge me on that, but I have a right to be treated by the government. This breeds frustration. What happens in a sacred institution like temple is that, like I said, people used to donate to the temple, kind and cash. Temple used to redistribute. So it was a redistribution scheme also amongst the population. But with that there was a sacred promise. For example, if you tilled the land that was given by the temple, there was few conditions. First, you could not sell it. So you could not destroy the ecosystem. You could not say that 4 people got together, sold it to a real estate builder, and he came up with the mall right in a smack of a sacred grove. So that is what could not happen in a temple. Second thing, you had to pay one service to the temple in return of tilling that land. You could pass it on to your children. So people hereditary, they lived on those lands for hundreds of years, temple lands. But they used to pay one service to the temple. You either provide food or some other item or a service. So with this promise of service, it was not your birthright. There was a sacred contract that was here going on. Temple gave you what you needed in life, but you gave one service which you could. And in this, there was a great democracy. Because the richer had no advantage in this. Even if you had no money, if you had less produce, you could perform something else. You could do something else, pay with service. So there was a great democracy in this system. It created for a more contented society. What happened is this system was destroyed in 1970s in India. Now how was it destroyed? With a series of tenant acts that were implemented all across India. Tenant Act said that if you're residing on a land for more than certain years, in some places 15, 20, 30, and if you do not have the deed of that land, but if you can prove that you have been living here, for a certain amount of years, then the government will issue a deed in your name on that land. Suddenly what happened? In the middle of the huge cities, all these people who were servitors of the temple, who were living on the lands of the temple, and most of these temples, this was a sacred contract, so there were no written records. And then overnight, these people found themselves sole owners of that piece of land that was treated as a piece of land. Suddenly it became crores. So a lot of people sold that, and without even knowing, this beautiful temple ecosystem was destroyed. Now nobody did this intentionally. We have to understand, a lot of things are done intentionally in our country. This was not even done intentionally. They did not want to destroy our temple ecosystem. They simply didn't know that this law will result into this. Tenant Act was necessary when you were, formalizing your structures, but there could have been exceptions added to the law. So I'm not speaking against the tenant law, but once again, the case for if you know your culture better, you can make better policies is, what we keep working in our organization also, and which this temple institution is a wonderful example of that. So this ecosystem, this is how now we are understanding how temple is an ecosystem, how it interacted with the communities living around it, with the devotees, with whoever was there. It employed a lot of people directly. A lot of other people paid some other unpaid services, and so many different things happened. But what surprised me, shocked me was that it also was a legal aid clinic. This is one of the most beautiful temples of Himachal Pradesh, Chamba. Chamba is, now Chamba who has been to? Chamba, you are from there?
No, I'm from Himachal.
From where in Himachal? Hamirpur. So Chamba ka Lakshmi Narayan temple complex hai. In this complex there are many temples. This is just the largest temple which is devoted to Lakshmi Narayan. In front of this temple there is a square. उसके ऊपर एक बोर्ड लगा था जब मैं गया, न्याय चबूतरा. So I asked the priest, what does this mean? Nyaya Chabootra. So they said whenever there is a small dispute, like a family dispute, two brothers, husband and wife, and disputes like this, small disputes, yeah, iski bakri wahan char gayi and all of this. It happens, and if you read the roster of cases, even in Supreme Court, there are absurd cases like this. So all of these cases, they say we don't go to court of law. We come here in temple, sit in front of the deity, take him as a Sakshi, and sitting here on this square in front of the deity, we solve, they say, around 80 to 90% of our small problems. So they never go on to court of law like district courts, high courts or Supreme Courts. Because if every small case goes to Supreme Court and there is one court every 1.4 billion, you can imagine what will happen. I think a few days ago somebody published a queue, Supreme Court queue is now 387 years long. So if you file a case, and if it comes up chronologically, it will take 387 years to come. So this is how, because you can imagine how many cases and how many problems are there. So that you reserve the king's court or the court of law for real serious crimes like murder, like another great thing. Those things could not be solved here. Sometimes they were, but those things generally went to, higher courts of law. But other problems, other smaller disputes, they were solved in front of temples. So temples also performed as legal aid clinics. Small paralegal aid, out of court settlements जिनमें हो सकता है, those things used to happen here. This is not the only example. I found many. श्री वीर नारायण बेलावाड़ी जो मैंने पहले आपको टेम्पल दिखाया था, वहाँ पर भी ऐसा होता है. तो जो नरसिम्ह भगवान है, ही इज कंसिडर्ड टू बी एन आर्बिट्रेटर, लाइक ए जज. तो उनके सामने बैठ के आप ये करते हैं. सो देयर 3 टेम्पल्स, एक वेणुगोपाल स्वामी, एक वीर नारायण एंड वन नरसिम्ह स्वामी. In front of Narasimha Swami, you sit and solve all your problems, small problems. So it also used to function as a legal aid clinic. Now, eco-conservation sites. A lot of these, every single temple, there is some shastras ordain that temples cannot exist without water bodies. So either make, and it's practical also, pani ki bina kaise rahenge. So you'll make a temple either on the banks of a river or a lake or ocean, or if there is nothing, then you create a temple. So when you create a temple, that is a temple tank, Kalyani, usko alag alag usme bolte hain. Karnataka mein they call it Kalyani. This is one of the near Halibadu, the famous World Heritage Site. So the natural runoff of the water is collected here for the rest of the year. They use it like the Baudis of Rajasthan and Gujarat, they also use it. In front of every temple, generally every temple, there is a great Kalyani. This also you do not see now because of a lot of destruction and because of the Tenant Act. A lot of Kalyanis also were declared as lands of certain people, क्योंकि वो किसी की लैंड के बीच में आ रही है, तो पूरा उन्होंने भरा. So Veer Narayan temple does not have a Kalyani. When I asked where is the Kalyani, he said वो घर बना उसके ऊपर. So I said how, and then he told me the story. In 1970s this happened. So now there is a hut over it. So they created, and वहाँ पर अभी भी एक law है, you cannot sell the land in that village to a developer. So it's a house, but they built a house over it. So that also got destroyed. Otherwise, almost every temple had a water body near it. So it naturally, preserves and increases the water table of the region. This is Lakshmi Narasimha Temple, Vailing, Goa. Goa is not known for temples, but it is wonderful temples. Brhat Anvashi is taken now it is taking second tour to Goa in September. It is absolutely wonderful temples. This temple, Lakshmi Narasimha, is built in a very quiet part of Goa. You can see there is dense forest behind. So I am standing at the temple. I am looking at this temple. Behind me is the temple. ये उसका photo है. पीछे you can see there is dense forest, right? अभी इसमें से एक natural stream आ रहा था. पहले से ही there was a natural stream of water, very small natural stream of water. वो natural stream यहाँ से निकलता है. तो इन्होंने क्या किया? Temple, it's just one thing. It built a tank at the middle of that stream. तो क्या हुआ? Now the temple stream comes. कुछ दिनों में वो पूरा ताल भर गया, और उसके बाद excess water once again यहाँ से excess है इस side में, और वहाँ से वो निकलने लगा. So the stream, which was a natural stream, continued on its way after fulfilling the needs of the human society in a particular piece of land. It's a beautiful representation of how nature and culture were conserved in a temple ecosystem. So natural stream, not disturbed, but used for human purposes, but not completely, changing either its direction or purpose, continuing after that. So this is how they conserved water bodies also. In a lot of places, in great cities, the only place where you see great trees are actually the places where the temples are, because every other place has been built over. Only the temples are holding out and not building great structures. This is another great, this is Brahmeshwar temple in Bhubaneswar. It's also a Panchayatan temple, so you see one temple here, one here, one here, one here, and this is the main temple. Another beautiful representation. They have a great wall also, and there is this great temple tank. Modhera we already saw in the last lectures. This is Krishna Pushkarini, Hampi. Hampi is full of lakes. This is Khajjar. Now Khajjar, a lot of people go to Himachal, Dalhousie, Khajjar, hill stations, beautiful places, no doubt. But Khajjar is a great spiritual place. This right here is Khajjar Nag temple. It's one of the most sacred temples of the region. This is a great example of a very sacred rule in our Shastras, that wherever a temple is, 3 things have to be there. The sacred building, Trinity, of course the temple, sacred water body, the lake, and the sacred grove around. So there has to be a jungle, a water body, and the temple near it. If there is no jungle, then you plant some trees. So it's not a jungle, but there is a sacred grove, so at least you can sit under the trees, and there is that natural environment. Abhi ye lake, because of human activities, is shrinking. But otherwise this used to be a huge lake. ये जो पूरा आपको bed दिख रहा है, this dark green, that used to be a lake. अभी भी भर जाता है कभी-कभी. So this in highlands, these places are rare. In mountains, when suddenly mountains open up with a depression, generally there is a great temple there. Parashar Lake is also in such place. High up a mountain, suddenly the mountains open up, there is a little depression, वहाँ मंदिर है और ताल है. So similar is here. So generally wherever the temples went, some tree plantation, where we started with Vastu Siddhanta, that if you disturb a piece of land, you have to replant 10 times more trees at other place, is the principle that we followed, and this is in practice. So this is it, we are coming towards the end. ये कुमाऊं का जागेश्वर धाम है, उत्तराखंड. ये भी बहुत ही पीछे देवदार का वन है. So all pure devdars that you see, it is so beautiful right here. We took it, our cohort, just 3 months back, and you have to travel a long way. पहले तो road भी अच्छा नहीं था, अभी now the road is good, and you reach there. There is a group of around 60 temples in the middle of the forest, and the water body, and actually this forest is all there. Kukke Subramanya in Karnataka is another such example. There are many actually I'm taking. This is not many people know. Meghalaya has a Shakti Peeth in Jaintia Hills. There is called Nartyang Durga. It's absolutely, if you go from Shillong to Nartyang Durga, it's one of the list aate hai na, one of the rites to take before you die. This is one of them. So do take it. Shillong to Nartyang Durga in Jaintia Hills. Beautiful place, small structure, but the surroundings are absolutely wonderful. So this is it. Temple is an ecosystem. Temple is a living system. It is living with the deity. It is living as it interacts with the communities. It has many of its dimensions, and like it is that one institution, if you create that, every other institution, important institution comes around it. So that's it. Now we can move on to questions. Thank you.